So, how hard is it to not exaggerate when you're talking about marketing and advertising? Because you're probably in business because what you do helps other people and you think you do it better than anybody else. In fact, you may very well do it better than anybody else. So when you're writing your marketing communications, it's it's hard not to exaggerate. I think that's a human tendency. My guest today is Lee Barnathan. I don't know if I've said your name out loud. Lee, is that the right way to pronounce it?
It is.
Okay, awesome. This is Work Together Wednesday. I'm Melinda Schmidt Connect. Thank you for joining us. If you're here, please let us know you're here. Just say hello. If you have a question or a comment you want to add to the conversation, we would love to hear from you. If you are watching the recording, please put in hashtag replay so that we know that you saw it after the fact. And I met Lee through an online networking group, one of those bonuses of the COVID era, and loved what he had to say about clear communication. Um, so I asked him to join us today. He's an expert copywriter. And what is your number one tip for the small business person that's working on their own marketing or perhaps working with someone to write copy for their website, social media, whatever type of advertising they're doing? What is your number one tip about this?
It's what you said. Be honest. Don't lie. Don't exaggerate. Tell it like it is and tell it simply and plainly so everyone can understand. Don't use fancy words if you don't have to. You don't need to be an SAT expert. You just need to be able to string together the right words to get the message that you want to get out to the people who you want to see the message.
All right. And I know that in social media, there's some research that shorter, fewer number of characters, those posts get more interaction. So does that carry over what I'm hearing you say in other formats that less is more?
It depends. Most of the time, less is more. But again, it depends on who your audience is. There are people who will take the time to read, like a 10,000 word article that just takes 20 minutes. But at the same time, most people don't have the time. And if your target market doesn't want to take the time and you know that, then you're going to want to craft a message that is very short, that takes 1 or 2 minutes to read.
That's a good point. If you are in a technical field, like for instance, I have a client who's in agriculture, he does seed coatings for seed companies. So in that case, there are times when you really need to explain technically, what's the advantage of this over that. So if your audience influences how many words you're using.
I would say generally, if you're to use a website as an example, you want to have only the amount of copy that fits the screen, so you don't have to scroll. Just to
Oh,
use that as a tip. And you know, a blog post could be the same, but again, it depends on your audience. Maybe you want to write a little longer, and because you know your audience is going to scroll a little bit. I'm not saying 10,000 words for a blog post, but you've got to know your audience to know the length.
okay. I appreciate that. And your number two tip, I think, goes hand in hand with number one, right?
Yes, because you need to be clear. And when I say clear, I don't just mean honest. I also mean that you've got to use the words to convey the message that you intend to send. You want to make sure that you're sending the message the way you want it received. I mean, how many times have we in our past, like in our childhoods, said something and somebody took it wrong and we couldn't understand. Well, wait, I didn't say that. That's
Right.
not what I meant. And yet that's exactly what the person heard.
That
You
seems
need to avoid that. You need to avoid that in the business world.
that seems kind of challenging to me because no matter how you word it, there's somebody that's probably going to see it differently or take it differently. Um,
True. You can't please all people all the time. But if you're sending a message out and you get enough feedback from people who obviously respond to the message that you have intended to send, which means they got the message that way, then that's your core. And the people who may come back to you and say, well, wait, I didn't like that, that'll be a smaller percentage. It's when it's flipped, when people are coming back to you negatively in large numbers that you realize, oh, my message is not right. I got to fix that.
Or it could be if it's crickets, right? If you put out a message and nobody's responding to it, is it because it's not conveying what you intended it to convey?
More likely, it's conveying a message they're not interested in. They may be getting the message, but it's not speaking to them, which is a different issue entirely. In that case, I say go back to being honest and direct. Say what you mean. And I think when you do that, your target audience will respond to you. At least that's what I have found.
So there's a balance between the unvarnished truth and embellishing, and you're trying to be authentic and clear, but you still want to put your best foot forward.
You absolutely do. Here's an example. Let's say you're a brand new business and you're a membership based business. And in the last month, you had 2 members. And now in this month, you got 3 more. Now you have a total of 5. And now you just got your 6 members. Now you got 6 members. You went from 2 to 6. That's 200%. It's 200% increase. So you don't say, to be honest, you say, my membership increased 200%, because that's exactly right. And that means something. It means a lot more than saying I went from 2 to 6. Those
Right.
are small numbers. You're still being honest completely. 200%, that's exactly right. If I'm doing the math right, and I don't trust my math, but I believe 2 to 6 would be.
I think it's
300%.
300%.
Okay, it's 300%. So yeah, but the point is, you get the math right.
Right.
It's 300%, which is far better than saying from 2 to 6. Now you've been completely honest. You didn't exaggerate. You didn't embellish. You told the truth, and it sounds really good.
Right. Right.
Now, if
Okay.
you said 200%, then your math is bad and your message is wrong and you're lying. So you want to make sure that you get the math right. But once you get the math right, you want to make sure you're saying it honestly. You can still say it in the best way possible, as long as it's honest.
Right. Right.
I should tell you, Glenn, that there is an inherent advantage to honesty. Because when you have a message that is honest, number one, your credibility is not going to take a hit, because no one's going to be able to catch you in a lie, because you're telling the truth.
Right.
And it's so much easier to take the truth out into the world. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to remember, oh, did I say this? Ooh, if I did, I better make sure I don't say this. You don't have to worry about that. If you say something that is completely honest and somebody questions you, it's so much easier to respond or defend or promote, pick your word, to that person. The recent political climate made me realize how important it is to be honest in everything you do. To cut through all of the noise and all the nonsense and frankly all the bullshit that's out there.
Right.
To get at the truth and write the truth. There is a market for people who want truth in advertising, who want truth in marketing, who want no BS marketing. As long as you are, at the same time, being honest, being very clear. So it doesn't matter what method you choose. If it's a printed method, a brochure, a product label, a direct mail letter. If it's online, like a website, a blog, or a social media post, you still have to make sure that you use not only the honest words, but the correct words to convey the message that you are intending to send. And the simpler the language, the more likely that language will not get in the way of the message being received the way you want it to.
Right. That makes complete sense. But I think in our busy world, sometimes we lose sight of the common sense basics and fundamentals. So I really appreciate your encouragement in this area. And we should also bring up that, as small business owners, we have to do a lot of this ourselves, just for cost and budget reasons. But there are times when, if this is not your strong suit, then it's worth the investment to pay somebody who is an expert at this, because you could spend hours trying to write it yourself and struggle, whereas you could pay someone who could get it done in an hour, and then you're ready to implement and move on. So that's also a point, is you may have to consider, do I need to pay somebody who's, this is really what they're good at, to help you with this? And that's where you come in if someone needs your services.
You're not going to go on the roof and fix a leak. You're going to hire somebody to do it. You're not going to build a house unless, of course, you know how to do that, and if that's your chosen profession. Why would it be any different in this instance, in this arena? I have found that people often think that just because they came up with a catchy slogan, like a one sentence plug that like rhymes, and they go to a networking meeting and they say it and everyone goes ooh ah, they laugh and they clap and they say good job. The person now thinks they're a writer. They're not. And that's what people need to realize. You still need to, and you're still better off hiring a professional to do the job that the professional can do.
Right.
Whether that's writing, whether that's broadcasting, whether that's plumbing, whether that's any other blue collar or white collar job.
It's good for you to do what you're good at, and it's worth paying somebody else to do what they're good at.
Oh, and it's not only is it worth it, but whatever you end up paying is going to be, you're going to get a better ROI when you're a professional to it.
Right.
Because you're going to pay for the value, and the value, you can't express that in a number.
Right. Well, I appreciate your time and your advice today. I'm so glad that we met online. I would also, another thought that came to me is that if you are writing copy for yourself, or even if you're hiring somebody to do it for you, asking other people for feedback. Does this communicate? What does this say to you? But not just asking the people that know you and like you, asking your target audience for feedback would be a critical thing. Because if you're asking somebody for their feedback and they're saying, I like it, yes, it's good, but they're not your target audience, then that feedback may not be valuable. So just a little thought that came to me. Just thought I would throw that in.
It's a very good point, because when you're working with copy and you're writing it yourself, you see it over and over and over again, and you start to miss things. You need to get a second set of eyes on it, and there are people who you could hire to edit, but your target, that's a second set of eyes. That's going to serve the purpose to make sure that they see what you're intending, and because they can't get in your head, they don't know what you mean. They can only see what is written there.
Right.
So if you ask the question, what message are you getting from this? If they say what you want them to say, good, you're more likely got the message correct. But if they say something that you're not intending, well, now you know, and you can fix it before you get out in the world with it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your advice and being with us today. Next Wednesday, on Work Together Wednesday, my guest will be Robin Stern, and he's an expert on Google My Business, which is a hugely powerful free tool that every business should be optimizing. So join us next Wednesday at 1:30 for Work Together Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.